Great. Okay, good evening from here, Glasgow in Scotland, and welcome to the second session of, the fifth session rather, of the second series of webinars organized by the Nigerian Society of Engineers Glasgow branch. My name is Emmanuel Salifu, and I'm the Publicity Secretary of the branch. And I welcome you on behalf of the Executive Council to this very unique webinar. Unique because this is more like a family meeting for engineers who practice in Nigeria, in the United Kingdom. We're bringing together the Engineering Council and the Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria and the Nigerian Society of Engineers. And you already noticed that we have the topmost guest in the echelon of these bodies already with us here today. So it promises to be a very wonderful time together, interactions and discussions on the way forward for engineering education, licensure and practice in Nigeria and in the United Kingdom. So I'll just have a quick rundown through what we have, but before then, some housekeeping. Endeavor to keep your microphones mute throughout the session, except of course, if you're invited to speak or contribute, so that we don't have a rowdy session. And there'll be time for questions and answers, but shortly after this roundup, the chairman of the branch will be coming for remarks. And thereafter, we'll have a first talk by Dr. Clark from the Engineering Council, followed immediately by the second talk by Engineer Professor Odigure, the Registrar of COREN, and of course, the question and answer, comments, and remarks session. But throughout the talks, feel free to type your questions into the chat box, and my colleague who will be handling that session will take care of it accordingly. And we'll have some brief announcements. And thereafter, we'll recognize the very many dignitaries that we have already present and we're expecting. And then we'll have some goodwill messages and appreciation, and we close for today. So I'll be inviting right away the chairman of the Nigerian Society of Engineers Glasgow branch, Engineer Dr. Oluseun Adediran, who will be presenting his welcome address. Mr. Chairman.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Salif. I think you've done a wonderful job there, giving that even the opening remarks is pretty good. Thanks for that. I just want to appreciate everyone joining us today, taking your time to join us despite all your busy schedule. We appreciate you. And all protocol duly observed. We, as you said, that we have the top people in terms of engineering organization, not just the UK, in Nigeria, which means we're having people from every corner of the world here. We thought this is extremely important webinar for just to come across trade and the professional bodies. How can we merge all these things together to make sure that both the Engineering Council benefits something from the NSC, from the current, and they can all synergize and work together to make sure that we make changes to the OY world. We in Glasgow, we are not just focusing just on Glasgow. We are not just focusing on Nigeria. We want a change in our world, and we want to see, every corner of the world move forward. And I'm going to go back. Will you mind to go to my the next slide? Yeah. So I'm just going to run us through the safety moment, which is really critical part of this seminar. We all know that we're still in COVID. Look at what is happening in India. We just sympathize with that country just now with the amount of the loss, loss of lives and all that is happening there just right now. And we know that with time they will get out of it. We passed through a lot in the UK, but what can we do differently to make sure that we don't go back to where we came from before? So every one of us, we made sacrifice, but I just want to encourage us to just stick to those facts. Let's the face covering still going on. Let's avoid the crowded places, clean our hands, 2-meter rules, and all the local rules. Let us do what we can to just keep things going. We are all keen just to want to meet again. I'm looking forward to our meeting with the ES, Engineer Rose, Professor Odigure and every rest of the executive. But the easiest way we all can get here is to just stick to our local rules so that we don't move back to where we are coming from in terms of the pandemic. Pandemic has helped us a lot, getting us here. But what can we do differently just to come out of it? Let us follow all our local rules, and that's my encouragement for everyone for joining today. This is a really critical moment for every corner of the world. Vaccine is really working well here in the UK. I can assure you that I'm going to maybe sometime I'm going to post the video of my, I'm going to get my own vaccine very soon. Then I'm going to post the video of it for people to see. So it's really working well. We are moving forward. But let us do whatever we can to stick to our local rules so that we can get out of this quickly. And that's the safety moment. Without too much wasting of your time, we need to, because we have a lot on our plates tonight, then let us just move ahead. And Engineer Emmanuel, over to you to just run us through the next thing in our, in our program for today. Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for that wonderful address and for reminding us of the need to be cautious in these trying times. So we're moving on right now to the first talk to be delivered by our first speaker, Dr. David Clark FRSC. He's the International Affairs Manager of the Engineering Council in the United Kingdom. I have a brief profile of Dr. Clark here, so I'll just read that out and then invite him to take over to give his talk. Dr. David has extensive experience in not-for-profit, professional body and corporate sectors. Since 2016, he has worked as International Affairs Manager at the Engineering Council, managing the work of securing and maintaining the international comparability of the UK registration standards. Prior to the above role, David held the position of Head of International Development at the Royal Society of Chemistry in the UK between 2008 and 2016. The focus of his role was to expand the Society's activities into international markets through the development of a network of staff and offices in key countries such as India, China, the USA, and Japan. An important part of his work was the development and management of partnerships to support UK scientists through international collaboration programs and joint funding agreements with government and industry. He was also responsible for a capacity building program to support African scientists in developing skills, knowledge, and international connections. Before he joined the Royal Society of Chemistry, Dr. David Clark worked for 19 years in industry with the American Analytical Instrument Company, PerkinElmer Incorporated. He held international business and technical management positions throughout his career there, mainly in the field of infrared spectroscopy. He was part of an interdisciplinary team that developed a fast infrared imaging microscope for industrial and medical applications, for which he holds a patent. David holds a PhD in physical organic chemistry from King's College in London and a Bachelor of Science with honors in chemistry with physiology and biochemistry from the University of Reading. Dr. Clark also has a postgraduate diploma in strategic marketing and was elected a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry in 2008. Dr. David Clark, you're welcome to present your talk.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen first. Okay. There we are. Well, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Thank you very much for this wonderful invitation to speak at the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the very nice introduction, Engineer Emmanuel. That saves me having to say anything about myself, so that's very nice. You can see from, or you could hear from the introduction that Actually, I'm not an engineer, but I'm a chemist, but I have worked alongside engineers in industry for many years. And I've always felt very close to the engineering profession. So that's why it's a real pleasure to be now part of the Engineering Council and to work on international projects and to work with colleagues all over the world on issues about regulation, professional competence, and other kinds of partnerships. So I'm going to speak for about maybe 20 minutes on a little bit of an introduction about the Engineering Council, and also a few aspects about professional competence, what that means, and how we assess this, and a little bit about some of our relationships in the UK with other engineering bodies. Some of them you will know very well. So I'll start with a little bit of information about the Engineering Council. So we are the regulator in the UK for the engineering profession. And that means we set the standard for professional competence, and we also set the standard for academic engineering programs. I'll say a bit more about that later on. We, as the regulator, we have a royal charter. So this means we have the authority from essentially from the Queen to regulate the engineering profession. And the way that we do that is through a system of voluntary self-regulation. So the profession regulates itself, and the profession works together to set the standards and the qualifications that you require to be on the register of engineers in the UK. And there are 3 different titles on our register. Chartered engineer, which everyone will know, that's probably the most famous one. And maybe we have today some chartered engineers in the listening to this presentation. There's also incorporated engineers. These are really, you can think of them as engineering technologists and also engineering technicians. And I explained that we set the standard, but we do not do the assessment. The assessment is done by a network of 39 professional engineering institutions, and we call those PEIs. And we issue a license to all of those PEIs to do the assessment in each discipline. So it could be civil engineering, mechanical, electrical. There's actually 39 different areas. And 22 of those PEIs are also licensed to accredit engineering degrees for iEng and cEng. And in terms of the register, our network is global. We have just under 20% of our registrants are living outside of the UK, and I think there's over 100 different countries represented. So you can see that we're a global organization. I mentioned 39 PEIs, and you can see there, those are some of the bodies that we issue licenses to, and you'll probably be familiar with some of them, especially the big 3. We call the big 3 the ICE, the IET, and the IMechE. They are by far the biggest, but there are many other bodies that are able to license to assess professional engineers in a very specific area of engineering, such as acoustics, water engineering, marine engineering, for example. So we're a very broad organization, and we have a lot of disciplines within our network. Now, I mentioned in the UK that the regulation is not compulsory. You don't have to be on the register to be working as an engineer, but you have to be on the register to use the professional title chartered engineer, for example. And the way that regulation works in the UK is we have a system of voluntary self-regulation, but also we work closely with the employers. And the employers, of course, are responsible for proper management and supervision, including aspects of safety. And together with the employers, we work also with the national standards bodies. And of course, they are setting, in some cases, setting standards for different kinds of work, different kind of safety codes as well. So it all kind of builds together to establish a system of regulation, which is hopefully in the public interest. That's the whole purpose, that we do all of these things to help to ensure competent and safe work for the public interest. And when engineers join the Engineering Council register, they agree to take personal responsibility for their own performance, and they will commit to do CPD and to maintain their competence and to extend their competence and knowledge. And they also maintain a responsibility for professional conduct. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a moment. Now, you may have heard in the UK of some other engineering bodies, and it is quite a complicated. So I've already talked about 39 PEIs. I've talked about the Engineering Council with a regulator, but there is also the Royal Academy of Engineering, who you may well know. They are really the National Academy. They provide support to government through policy, and they also are a funding body, and they fund scientific research, they fund industry academia partnerships, and they also fund international partnerships. And I am involved with the RANG because I'm on the steering group of the Africa Catalyst, which is one of the funding programs, which is around capacity building in terms of engineering organizations within Africa. And I'm very proud to be part of that. The other body that you may have heard of is Engineering UK, and they are really concerned with young engineers and trying to encourage young people and graduates to stay in the profession and to join the profession. So they're really concerned with filling the pipeline of new engineers. Engineering UK are based in London, and they actually share offices with the Engineering Council, so we work together closely with them. Now, I said that the Engineering Council is an international organisation, and we have a lot of different relationships which I am responsible for managing. Firstly, we're very involved with the IEA, and we're a signatory of all of the accords, the Washington, Sydney and Dublin Accords. I'm sure you've heard of the Washington Accord. We're also members of the 3 agreements, the IPEA, the IETA and the AIET. These are competence agreements. We are the UK national member of FIANI. This is a European body, European Federation of Engineering Societies. And FIANI awards a title called EURENG, European Engineer. And we have in the UK over 16,000 European engineers. We are a member of a body called the European Network of Accreditation of Engineering Education. So this is about comparison of standards of degrees through Europe. And we are the UK member. We are also working under UK regulation, so this is government regulation. When we Brexited, some new legislation came in, which is concerned with maintaining the supply of engineers to the UK for projects, specifically from Europe, but it will be extended to the rest of the world in, well, probably this year, actually. The new regulations were mentioned in the Queen's speech. So we have bilateral agreements with a number of organizations around the world, and we're part of a body in Europe called Engnet, which is a series of countries, a number of countries, Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, the Netherlands, and the UK. And we are concerned with comparing standards of competence across all of the countries so that we can have mutual recognition. This is quite new, this organization, Engnet, so we don't have it yet. But it's a work in progress, shall we say. So you can see that we're active around the world. Now, we have a number of standards. So if we set the standards in the UK, that means we keep the standards and we maintain the standards. Probably the two most important standards are what we call AHEP, the Accreditation of Higher Education Programs. And this is the standard for UK engineering programs in UK universities. To be accredited, you have to meet the AHEP standard. And it's all based around learning outcomes. We also set the UK standard of professional engineering competence, UK spec. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit more. UK spec, we revised all of our standards last year, and we launched them, actually we published them in August 2020, and we launched them formally in April this year. And those are the new standards. It's the 4th edition of UK spec and the 4th edition of AHEP. And you can, if you want to see them, you can get them online. They're on the Engineering Council website. And they're quite informative. And they tell you a lot of information about what you need to do to join the register and how you're assessed to do that. So UK spec, in terms of competence, we have 5 areas. And you have to, when you want to join the register, you have to show that you meet the standard in 5 areas. Engineering knowledge, and then B is the application of that knowledge through design and development. And then we've got what we call, I guess, the 2 more general or generic competencies. C is around responsibility management and leadership, and D is around communication and interpersonal skills, so teamwork and that kind of skill. Competence E is about commitment to the profession, so it can include things like ethics, a commitment to sustainable work, sustainable development, commitment to working safely, and a commitment to extend and develop your professional competence. So there's 5 areas. So it is quite a simple system. It's worth also thinking about what is competence? What do we mean? And there is a good definition. Actually, this is this definition here. The competencies are skills, knowledge, practical behaviors, and attitudes which inform the way you operate in working life to achieve intended results. That is actually the ISO 9000 definition of competence. So it's not an Engineering Council definition. It's a kind of a general definition that's used by a lot of different organizations. And the important thing for the UK system is that you can develop competence from a variety of combinations of learning and training and experience. It's not all about your academic degree. It's about the application of your knowledge. And that knowledge could be formal, so it could be a degree, or it could be informal, it could be work, it could be training or study that you have done yourself, and it could be combined with your professional experience. So that's how you build your competence. And it's about, when we think about a competent engineer, we think that you exercise very high level of professional judgment in a variety of situations, and you're able to build on previous experience to demonstrate competence. And actually, sometimes it's a good thing to look at other professions, to see what they do, because we have to bear in mind that as engineers, we can't invent everything ourselves. We have to try to learn from others. And actually, competence is not an engineering phenomenon in itself. Competence is, it can apply to your doctor, your lawyer, your teacher. It's a generic kind of concept. So if you compare a number of different professions, such as the medical profession, the law society, and then this is a European framework of competence for digital competence, actually what you find is everybody is really kind of doing the same thing. So they're looking at an area that's sort of a technical area and the application of the technical area. But they're also talking a lot about responsibility, working with other people, professional behaviors, sharing and communicating, collaborating, ethics and responsibility. So it's a real, it's an interesting view, actually, to see that virtually all the professions are doing the same thing. And it's always good to compare. So that's a little bit about competence and a little bit about the engineering view and a little bit about how we compare as a profession. Well, let's talk a little bit more practically about how you would become registered in the UK. So there is there are 3 categories of registration. And engineering technician, that is normally associated with apprenticeships, vocational work. Then you've got the incorporated engineer and the chartered engineer. Now, the exemplifying qualification of the IEng is a bachelor degree, and the exemplifying qualification for chartered engineer is a master's degree. But you don't have to have those. We have ways to assess, which means that, let's give an example. If you're working at chartered engineer level, but you only have a bachelor degree, you can be assessed in a particular way to demonstrate that you have bridged the gap between master and bachelor through your professional activities and through the training and experience that you have. And in fact, you don't have to have even an engineering degree, but you do have to be working at a high level in engineering. But our system of assessment is very open and very inclusive, and we can accept a lot of people from different backgrounds into the profession, as long as they meet the standard. That's the most important thing. So really, the first thing you have to do is you have to join one of the UK PEIs. For example, if you're working in civil engineering, you have to join the ICE. And if you tell them you want to be registered, they will be able to assess your knowledge and your experience and your competence. And you have, in that process, you have the opportunity to give your qualifications, to show your qualifications, and they could be recognized qualifications, for example, UK engineering degrees, which are accredited. But if you have degrees from somewhere else in the world, that is okay. If you fall short of the exemplifying qualifications, that is okay as well. And it's even okay if you have no relevant qualifications. As long as you can demonstrate that you have the knowledge, skills, and competence, you can join the register. We have a very sophisticated system in the UK, and it works very well to open the doors to the profession for everyone. And I can see that this is quite small, so I won't say all the words on the slide. But just to point out, there are 3 stages in assessment. One is if you have a degree or engineering degrees, we can assess those. If you don't have those qualifications, you would do what is known as individual assessment, and you might need to write a report or have a technical interview if you don't have the right degree. But then everybody moves on to what we call a professional review. And this is where you send a portfolio of your evidence. And first off, you have a desk review, and then you have a professional review interview. And you're interviewed by 2 trained assessors who are experts in your field. So it could be, civil, mechanical, railways, electrical, computing, whatever it is. We will have some experts in that field, and they are very highly trained to be able to assess you. And then they will make a recommendation to a committee, and that committee will take a second look at your application, and you can be recommended to join the register. And that process can take, it will take a couple of months, maybe on average. It depends if you need to supply a lot of extra information. It could be 3 to 6 months maybe, but it's not too bad. And you can do a lot of it online right now. Finally, just talk about a little bit about commitment. I've talked about competence, but what do I mean when I say professional commitment? This is part of the standard. And I think all of these things you'll be familiar. It's complying with codes of conduct, managing and applying safe systems of work, showing that you know how to work sustainably, and you can apply sustainable principles to all of your day-to-day activities where it is relevant. And you will commit to do CPD, and you will also, it's very good if you can show that you're actively participating in the profession, just like everyone today is participating in the profession in in a voluntary way by you know, participating in this wonderful meeting. That's what it means by participating in the profession, sharing knowledge and helping others to develop their skills and knowledge. And of course, ethics is an important aspect of that as well. One little word about CPD. We, in the UK, we don't have a set number of hours. We don't say you have to do 50 hours of CPD. What we do say is you have to do the most appropriate amount of CPD, and you are best placed to know how much that should be. So there's no set number of hours, but you have to keep a CPD record. So from 2019, you have to maintain a record, CPD record. And we do CPD sampling and we ask for records. At the moment, it's a small percentage. We can't sample everybody because we have nearly 250,000 engineers, but we sample a small percentage, but it will increase. And from last year, from 2020, if you don't submit your CPD, I mean, we give people plenty of chances to do it, but if you do not respond or you don't engage, you can be removed from the register. So it's an important aspect of being, you know, a chartered engineer or an incorporated engineer or an engineering technician. You have to do CPD. I probably won't say too much about this. I'm going to move over this slide. Just going to talk about one more thing. There's one more slide here. Part of our responsibilities as the Engineering Council is to help and partner with other organizations who want to develop their own competence-based assessment. So I'm talking about regulators, professional engineering bodies around the world. And to help do that, we partnered with the British Standards Institution, and we published together a standard called PAS 525. PAS means publicly available specification, and it's like an ISO, but it's a UK one. It's a UK version. So PAS 525 2018 is based on UK spec, but it's slightly changed so that anyone can adopt it around the world. If you want to know more about it, you can look on it's on the BSI website. It's also on the FIANI website, and I can supply a link and you can actually look inside the document. And it's really for, as I say, it's for regulators, licensing bodies, agencies around the world to develop their own framework of competence. And if you adopt it, what you will have at the end is something that looks a bit like UK spec, but it can be adapted to your own needs. And that's something that we're very much trying to work with and support at the moment. So I will stop there. I'm not sure what the procedure is for questions. I think the questions are later on, but I'm very happy to take questions at the appropriate point. And thank you very much for listening to the presentation.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks so much for for taking your time to talk us through that. Thank you. The question is going to come later on, so yep. I'm sure we'll just go to the next phase now. Dr. Emmanuel.
Thanks very much, Dr. Clark, for that very wonderful presentation. Yeah, so questions are welcome. Currently, people can just send in their question into the chat box, and at the end of the second talk, we'll have the questions and answers all together from the two talks. So if you can just hang on a bit, Dr. Clark, then we'll have the questions after the second talk. Right, I'll be moving on now to invite the second speaker for today, Engineer Professor Joseph Odigure. the Registrar Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN. I would read a brief profile of the professor and then invite him to give his talk. Engineer Professor Joseph Obofoni Odigure attended the Belarus National University of Technology, Minsk, in Belarus, from where he obtained an MSc with distinction in chemical technology and emerged as the best graduating student. He also holds a PhD in technical sciences from the same university. Professor Odigure was employed as Lecturer 1 by the Federal University of Technology, Mina, Nigeria, and rose through the ranks, gaining promotion to the rank of Professor of Chemical Engineering in the year 2002. Until his appointment as the Registrar COREN, he had been involved in various COREN activities. He served as the Vice President of COREN and as member, chairman of various committees, such as chairman of the subcommittee on the production of guideline document for the outcome-based engineering workshop and a review of benchmark minimum academic standards, BMAS, for undergraduate programs in Nigerian universities in May 2017. He was a member of the Special Cases Committee and the chairman of the Standards Organization of Nigeria Technical Committee on Standardization and Quality Assurance in Building and Construction Industry as the representative of COREN in 2018. He is an administrator of repute, having served in various administrative and managerial capacities in the public and private universities and various national and international committees. He was twice elected as the Dean of School of Engineering and Engineering Technology, the Foundation Coordinator and Dean of the School of Information and Communication Technology, the Foundation Director, Center for Open Distance and E-Learning, all at the Federal University of Technology, Mina, Niger State, Nigeria. He is the recipient of various local and international awards, including Honorary Fellow of the Australian Institute of High Energetic Materials, Fellow of the Nigeria Association of Technologist Engineers, among others. He has over 100 authored and co-authored publications, including patents, research journal articles, books and conferences, proceedings, and he's widely cited in his area of research. He also serves as a referee to various local and international journals. Distinguished guests, join me in welcoming Engineer Professor Odigure, Registrar COREN, for his talk. Professor, sir.
Thank you very much. Please allow me to just uphold the existing protocol. And I, first of all, have to apologize that I might not be able to share the paper I have because I've been traveling all this week, speaking from Minagua, Bayelsa State. I'm here partly on official assignment. And I strongly feel this is very important and I have to make a presentation, no matter the shape it's going to take. First of all, I want to say that excellence, we are looking at the topic for today, which is actually based on trying to look at licensure, education, and competence in engineering. I want to say, first of all, that excellence and relevance in professional practice are not entirely by learning, work skill, or proficiency. They are from first of all, we must distinguish between our practice in Nigeria and the practice we have in the developed nation. And while we have well-established institutional framework in the developed countries, in Africa, in Nigeria, we are still talking about having institutions that works, institutions where the people have the right spirit competence, the understanding, the humility, the patience to understand that tomorrow actually belongs to them. Engineering practice that works, which to a large extent depends on to what extent we are able to pour ourselves into what we intend to do. So we will be looking at competence completely at the level of trying to develop a culture that works for us in Nigeria, rather than looking at culture that are well established. So throughout my presentation, you might be a little bit hesitant to think that we are we are there, or actually we're not there in the sense of it, in the terms of practice, in terms of regulation, in terms of education and competence. We'll be looking at some of the problems we have later. That's why today's presentation cannot be diverse from the complex problems that we have, both nature and physical and spiritual. Society does not exist outside man and woman. It thrives to the extent of our learning and character development, to the extent we are able to coalesce our learning and the character we have to produce the infrastructure change that we desire, and of course to initiate or sustain the engineering competence and delivery of services and development that we are looking for. So regulation to us in Nigeria is still at very, very rudimentary stage, looking at what the first presenter has spoken about. Licensure is still very much on the, I won't say on the specialized scale, because today we still license people based on one unified common entry requirement, which we just look at and assume that they have met the requirement for professional registration. It's at this backdrop we want to look at why are we in the position we are today. Today we have the pandemic, which is the COVID. COVID has completely changed the way we look at our education. COVID has shown that we are not there in terms of the infrastructure, governmental infrastructure, developmental infrastructure that we need to face the daunting and complicated problems that already existed, as we already know, based on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. If we look at those 17 goals, we are talking of, in Nigeria today, the issue of poverty, we are looking at hunger, we are looking at issue of good health and well-being. Education is comatose. Gender equality is not really what we should be. We can say we have achieved much. Water, affordable energy. These are issues looking at the 17 sustainable goals, mentioned by the United Nations. And to us, if we are to sustain or to meet up with the 2030 targets set by United Nations, then definitely we have to look at the way education runs. We have to look at our definition of competence. We have to look at the issue of whether we have the required infrastructure to key into all these goals. Of course, there are problems, and at the same time, there are opportunities to practice engineering, particularly in the developing nation. These problems are not they are not insurmountable. In fact, there are opportunities for any one of us who believes that they have the competence, qualifications that they can adapt to solve the problems that are so numerous in our nation as are today. We need strong nature understanding and character relationship to promote technological development. There is space for engineers and technologies to practice and to become very, very successful in the practice of engineering in Nigeria. Why do we say so? 39% of the world population do not have safe drinking water. In Nigeria, that percentage could be close to about 40, 50, because we all live on borehole water and stream water. 35% do not have improved sanitation. We can say without any contradiction, so that's close to 75% or 90% of our rural dwellers do not have improved sanitation facilities. Electricity is comatose, and definitely we have areas that don't have up to 4 hours continuous supply of electricity per day. Even in big cities like Abuja, our federal capital, we do not have close to about 6. We might have close to 16, between 10 and 16 hours of electricity, depending on the area you are staying. Of course, poverty level is quite high now. Today, we are talking of issues of poverty. A naira exchange to about 485 naira to a dollar, and that is far. No, we can say the number of people earning that amount of money could be maybe about 30–40% in a day. These are issues. Take along the issue of ICT connectivity, internet connectivity. Take along the fact that many of us many of the population go hungry every day. I'm not just mentioning these problems just to downgrade our nation. No, these are realities, and these are engineering opportunities. And that is why looking at the issues of registration, competence, we are looking at it from the background of how do we, at this point, rate competencies to satisfy the immediate needs of the people, the immediate needs of our nation. Of course, the Nigerian economy is not really as buoyant as we actually imagine, but the truth remains that even with the low GDP that we have, the low GDP that we have, it actually speaks of opportunity for those of you in the diaspora to look at the possible contributions they can make towards the improvement of the Nigerian economy. Registration is about competence. Registration is about having the right qualification, having the right people, but it's also about solving issues, solving national problems. And if we look at our Nigerian budget today, the 2020 budget that we had, that we just completed, we ran a deficit of about maybe around, the deficit was close to 1.2 trillion. 1.2 trillion. Okay, 1.2 trillion. And they said despite the revenue shortfall, the government still managed to outspend its capital target, reporting a total of 10 trillion compared to a target of 9.9 trillion, which was approximately about, that gives you an expenditure of about, expenditure deficit about 3.27 trillion. So if you look at all these things that we have, if we look at all these things, we have to know that Nigeria is a poor nation, very extremely poor nation. I will just give you a very simple analogy to help us understand the level of poverty that we have in our country. The American COVID relief passed by the Congress under Biden spent 1.9 trillion as COVID relief. In Nigeria, the total amount released for COVID expenditure is about $450 million. So comparison, a nation having $1.9 trillion to fight COVID, and a nation that is spending less than $1 billion to fight COVID. It shows you how poor we are, and it shows you the extent we still have to go in trying to regulate engineering, in trying to understand that engineering in terms of regulation still has a very long way to go. And this is not unconnected with the type of education that we have, with the type of governmental structure that we have, with the type of facilities, developmental facilities that we have, institutional infrastructures that have been put in place. They are not working the way we expect it to work. And mostly because the human character has very little to be molded to be patriotic enough to be part of a system that allow us to collectively own responsibility in order to regulate the engineering practice and other field of practice in Nigeria. This is a report by KPMG for what we have in the 2021 budget, that in the proposed budget, The aggregate revenue expenditure for 2021 was put at 7.89 trillion. And that's for the aggregate revenue. And the expenditure was put at 13.08 trillion. In other words, we have a deficit for 2021 budget of 5.02 trillion naira. 5.02 trillion naira. And of this amount, we are hoping from borrowing, we'll be borrowing close to 4.2 trillion naira and 205 billion from privatization proceeds, and about 709 billion we are expecting from the drawdown from whatever bilateral loan or collateral loans that we are going to get from multinational organizations. In terms of unemployment, as at today figure, the figure is put at about 29% unemployment. And of course, this figure does not actually represent the number of unemployed graduates in the nation. The statistic shows that of this, the total number of unemployed graduates is far higher than about 40%. Why do we have this problem? Is the issue of our education. Our education as of today does not have the right focus, does not have the right focus that is required for us to produce market-ready graduates, market-ready graduates. If we look at the education system that we have today, statistics clearly shows that close to 48% of employers rated young engineers poor in conceptual and creative thinking. That's employers rating of the graduates that we have. 48% of those of employers rated our graduates as poor in conceptual and creative thinking. 44% of employers rated our young graduates poor in self-awareness. 39.6% of employers rated our young graduates as poor in time management. 36% rated them as poor in global and commercial awareness. When we look at statistics that tend to back up all these things in terms of our registration, it's the same rating we have for sense of career direction at the point of graduation from universities or colleges of education. Emotional intelligence is also rated very well. And also, the employers rated the poor management, that's the poor management of school to work transition. Our graduates effectively are not prepared to meet the type of condition that is required in workplaces after graduation. These are very serious facts. And of course, it mitigates our ability to get the results required in terms of regulation, in terms of employability of our graduates, in terms of setting national goals, national development goals, because the skills required, the lifelong skill required to be employed and be employable at any time is actually not there. Our graduates are not prepared for lifelong learning. The statistics we have also are also very daunting. If we look at the National Education Enrollment to Tertiary Institution, in 2020, a total of 1,949,000, or just say about 1,950,000 candidates out for 2020 Unified Matriculation Examination. And compare that figure to what we have in 2016, we have an increase between 2016 and 2020 of about 25% increase in student enrollment for candidates wishing to sit for the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. In other words, within 5 years, the increase was about 25%. Record shows that less than 30% of this get actually admitted. 30% have the qualification to be admitted, Okay, that's of the 1.9 million people, only 30% have the qualification to be admitted. And out of that 30%, between 30 to 40% are fortunate to be, to be given admission into universities and the polytechnics. And of that amount, that's out of the 30-40% that actually got admitted, of the initial 30% that are qualified for admission, only about 30% get employed at the point of within 2 years after graduation. Effectively, of the eligible candidates qualified for admission, we have about 1.5 million annually untrained people, annually untrained candidates inside, that are supposed to be given skill, whatever skill, left untrained and are readily added to the bracket of unemployed people in Nigeria. These are problems that we are talking about. These are very serious issues, very serious statistics, and it speaks of the need for us to actually rethink what we do with our educational system, what the registration that we do, the criteria that we use in registration of all categories of the engineering discipline, and of course, how do we tackle the increasing workforce, price disruption of the workforce that we have in Nigeria, with this huge army of about 1.4 million untrained, unskilled people annually released into the economy. These are very serious problems, and it's against this backdrop that we are trying to look at the issues that we have in COREN. COREN, I mean the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. COREN was established by an act, decree number 55 of 1970, and it has been amended recently, further amended recently by the Act number 3 of 2018. By mandate, COREN is empowered to determine who is an engineer for the purpose of the Act, determine what standard of knowledge and skill to attain by the person seeking to become registered as engineers, and raising those standards from time to time as circumstances may permit. Secure, in accordance with the provision of the Act, the establishment and maintenance of a register of persons entitled to practice as registered engineer, and the publication from time to time of the list of these persons. Gentlemen, I heard when a colleague in London was speaking about the issue of the Act establishing the registration of people, registration of qualified persons in Nigeria, and their issue whether they can work or cannot work. In Nigeria, the Act makes it mandatory for you to register and practice. But unfortunately, as we shall be seeing later from the figures that we have as of today less than 56,000 people registered in our books. Of course, that does not in any way represent the number of qualified engineers that are practicing in our nation. So between registration and non-registration of engineers, technologists, technicians, craftsmen, we have very serious problem. We'll be looking at those data later, and to actually see the gravity of the issues that we have at hand, and the fact that as of today, registration is not really taken as it's not given the right attention required right from its inception of what we expect it to be. By current mandate, we are to look at the qualification required for engineering education, accreditation of engineering institutions in Nigeria, and the Act in subsection 2 and section 6 recommends that any institution wishing to embark on any training course of engineering discipline as engineers, as technologists, as technicians, or even College of Education must have to be accredited by COREN. And of course, COREN should look at the entire gamut of requirements in terms of curriculum, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of competence of the lecturer, staff, student ratio, and a host of other requirements that are contained in the accreditation manual that these institutions must meet at a particular level, at a particular standard. We also are trying to see how we can register with the Washington Accord. In 2016, the process was started, but as of today, we have gone quite far in implementing the processes that are required. We'll be looking later at the outcome-based education system and the implementation process that we have initiated. And of course, our desire to register with the Washington Accord also brought out the loopholes that we have in our present accreditation system. We briefly talk about that one later. By the Act, whatever we do is all listed here. You can also obtain a copy of all the guidelines that we have developed within the last 2 years in terms of the OBE, outcome-based accreditation for all engineering universities programs. They are available online. We have also developed the registration guideline for all engineers. It's also on our website, and download it and see the requirements that are there. We have also developed the continuous professional development units that are required for annual registration. Again, we are at the conceptual stage in most of these documents, and hopefully we are hoping the implementation will be strong enough to cause a change in the way we run accreditation, we run registration of engineering personnel on an annual basis. As of today, we don't actually look at the continuous professional points that you score. You pay your fee and you get registered annually. This is about to change. We are changing that system, and a committee has been set up to implement the CPD, the Continuous Professional Development Program, and that committee is saddled with the responsibility of determining the type of workshops, the type of conferences, the type of the program an engineer must have attended in the course of the previous year for him to be registered in this current year. The list of all registered engineers are online. You can click and check any engineer, whether it's up to date or is actually registered. You can get those information easily on our website. So registration is becoming a little bit different altogether. This year, we have initiated a program that makes registration fully in line with some basic criteria that is required depending on your entry qualification. If you have a BEng or BSc in engineering, those are automatic registrable routes in the sense that you only have to sit for the examination, and if you are deemed, if you pass it, you are registered. Alternatively, you can register with the Nigerian Society of Engineers, or if you are a chartered engineer from UK or America, you are given direct registration. You don't need to attend the professional examination you are automatically registered. But for those with science qualification, in other words, like BSc in building, BSc in any of the sciences, it's important from this year that you have a master's degree and a PhD or a PhD to be registered as an engineer, having met other criteria, like you must have practiced for at least 10 years, and you must have attained the minimum age of 50 years. So these are entry policies, some standards that are set for you to be registered as engineer or to be admitted into the register of CORE. Should you practice engineering in Nigeria without registration and you run foul of the law, or if you are practicing engineering and you run foul of the law, CORE, by the newly amended 2018 Act, has the moral obligation to invite you to face the investigation panel, and if the investigation panel establish a prima facie case against the individual, that person will have to face the disciplinary tribunal. A disciplinary tribunal is made up of 13-member. It's a 13-member committee, a 13-member committee with the Chief Justice appointee as the assessor, and it has the status of a high court. Any case tried by the tribunal can only be appealed at the appellate court, the appeal court. So nobody can overturn, no other lower court can overturn the verdict of a tribunal. It can only be overturned by the appeal court of the Federation. So these are measures put in place to give to ensure that 2018 amended Act has clearly demarcated, clearly mandated CORE to ensure that quackery in engineering is brought to the barest minimum. The process has started. The tribunal is sitting this month on the 19th and 20th of May to try a few cases that we have already of erring engineers. We are quite determined to ensure that the registration process is improved upon. But as I said, registration is having the right to, the right act is one, but having the right infrastructure, institutional infrastructure, is another thing. Today, I want you to look at the table we have today on the number of registered engineers that we have, starting from 2016 to 2020. If it's not clear, we actually have it from 2016 to 2020. And you will discover that in the register as of today, we have predominantly the total number of registered engineers in Adari stands at about 58,934 as at December. Total engineers registered last 4 years. 5 years is about 26,596. In other words, predominantly the bulk of registration took place within the last 5 years. And in terms of the number of registered engineering firms in practicing engineering in Nigeria, so far, the total number of firm registers put together as sole ownership, as partnership, as limited liability, all together, put together, we are talking about 1,483 registered engineering firms. This is grossly inadequate for a nation of about 200 million people. And of course, it also speaks of the fact that as of today, Nigeria only has close to 90% of the African trade, because the firms operating in Nigeria do not have the right license, the right registration to practice outside Nigeria. We are in a dilemma. It's either the entrepreneurs do not understand the weight of registration, do not understand the full meaning of getting their firms registered in order to enhance competitiveness, national and global competitiveness, or they are just indifferent when it comes to registration with the regulatory body. Current Council has approved full implementation of the outcome-based engineering education, and it comes with a lot of process. This is not just a dream. It is the route we have to be registered with the Washington Accord, with the international body. We must change the way engineering education is handled in Nigeria. We must pay more attention on competence rather than having an education driven by the CGPA, the grade that you need to graduate, either with 2-1 or 2-2, or even top class. We have to change our thinking, our education from being teacher focused to being student focused, so that students can actually develop to have the right competence to be able to solve problems, to be committed, to have themselves committed to lifelong learning, to be creative, and have the average communication skill, be abreast with new technological development, be flexible and able to participate in managerial processes, and finally, have good decision-making skill. These are issues that are, to a large extent, barely taken care of in our present educational system. And if we must change, we must embrace the outcome-based learning, performance-based learning, so that our universities, our polytechnics, we focus more on having graduates that are market-ready, driven by strong program education outcome that takes into consideration the needs of the industries, the needs of the nation, rather than having graduates going into the streets, coming out, remaining unemployed 5-6 years after leaving the universities. Our emphasis must change. We must look at the possibility of introducing students right from the very beginning at 100 level to embrace the necessity of soft skills needed for job, to embrace communication skill, to embrace interpersonal skill, to embrace and to have the right analytical skill, the working attitude, the working character that is required to be a competitor, to be an entrepreneur, rather than just sitting down, not able to solve, understand the complexity of present-day learning, present-day activities that we have to do. So we are migrating from that's our accreditation system. We are migrating from the traditional accreditation system of our educational system, and we are looking at the outcome-based, performance-based accreditation system that we help to produce the right engineers that are required for right engineers, right technologies, and right technical skills that are required for the Nigerian job market. In line with this, we in Korean, as Korean in particular, have signed a lot of MOUs with, first of all, with our parent ministry, that the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. We have an agreement with the minister that university students can be attached to all federal government projects in the nation. And of course, we are talking with the Manufacturers Association that have shown interest in being involved in the outcome-based engineering education. We have a committee now set up by the Federal Ministry of Education, comprising of the NUC, NBTE, and of course the colleges, technical colleges that we have, as the colleges of technical education. We hope to bring in the principals into the educational system. Gentlemen, it is a long way. It's a long way to go. We have a long assignment, and these assignments can only be completed with the active involvement of every one of us. It's a long and very difficult part, a very tedious part, but it is doable. And of course, we are counting on those of you in the diaspora to be part of this system, to be part of creating the innovation that is required for us to have a workable educational system so that we can have a nation that is more productive. COVID-19 has exposed our nakedness, and the only way we can go about this is to restructure ourselves and as a system. Thank you very much. I'm open to questions that will come up, and I want to appreciate you for this opportunity given to me to be part of the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, very big thanks to the registrar, Professor Joseph Odigure, for that comprehensive outlook of the state of engineering education and engineering practice in Nigeria. I'm not going to say too much because I think we have a whole lot of questions already waiting for our first speaker, Dr. Clark, and also for Professor Odigure. But before then, I just want to say that the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Society of Engineers from the headquarters in Abuja is right here, right now, Engineer Dr. Alex Okopi Momo, FNSC. And he is also available to take questions relating to the engineering education and practice and what NS is doing in tandem with COREN and also global collaborations in that area. So feel free to ask your questions across board as well. So I'll be handing over to my colleague, Engineer Sharp Ugwocha, the Assistant Technical Secretary of the branch, who will be coordinating the Q&A interactions and discussion section. Engineer Sharp, you have a very tough work today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, another special thanks to our...
Yeah, sorry, Engineer Sharp, if you don't mind, maybe just those questions, if you can ask Dr. Dave one, ask Professor Joseph one, just to simultaneously, so that we don't just ask everything Dave and now move to Professor Joseph. Do you get that? Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Quite like Emmanuel mentioned, quite a long list. So once again, special thanks to you, guest speakers today, Dr. David Clark and Professor Odigure. Right, first question here. Just before I can see a hand, please, if you still have questions, if we have time, we can still take a few more, but we have quite some questions here. Both of you mentioned about competencies and standards and integrating from the engineering practice to the academia, the educational system, which is part of our topic today. Are you driving these, call it engineering reforms or improvements? Are you driving them at the curriculum level? So, let's have Dr. Clark come in.
Yes, thank you. Well, yes, I think we are. What we do in the UK is we don't have, let's say the Engineering Council doesn't tell the profession what to do. We are part of the profession, so we're working with the people in the PEIs who are part of academia. We're working with organizations like the Engineering Professors Council. We're also working with the Royal Academy to try to work together to develop the curriculum. We are not education experts, but we do know we expect a graduate to do and to know. And we're always looking at new areas such as, sustainability, perhaps things like what should a graduate know about ethical considerations of professional life, even though they haven't started a professional life yet. So we do work closely with the universities to develop curriculum.
Thank you, sir. Professor Odigure, you mentioned the outcome-based education system. So is that been and the accreditations? Is it also at the curriculum level with the university? So do you work with the NUC, National University Commission in Nigeria?
Yes, we work with everybody. There are stakeholders. As I said, the committee has already been set up by the Federal Ministry of Education, comprising of the NUC, COREN, MBTE, and the colleges of education. The nation is interested in harmonizing and ensuring that no matter the strata of engineering education you have, you come out with the right competence. And we in COREN, we are implementing it fully. On the 26th of this month, we'll be having a webinar for all universities with engineering program and also other stakeholders on the implementation of the outcome-based education in the Nigerian universities. So it's something we are doing. We are quite optimistic. We have to sell this to everybody and let everybody be part of it. We are developing a complete new accreditation system based on the Washington Accord to enable us drive this issue so that we have people graduating with the right competence.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to follow up on that, because there's a similar question here that is at the back of that. Is it just at tertiary level, that's the universities or the colleges of, are there some things that can be cascaded, aspects of the engineering practice to go down to colleges or even at secondary school level or even at a lower level? Are there some things, plans along that line?
Yes, in fact, we are trying to hold a workshop for principals of colleges of technical schools, colleges of technical schools, to ensure that we just as we have for the university, we have the CODED, as the Committee of Deans of Engineering and Technology in Nigeria. We have the COMPODED for the Polytechnic. We want to create a body like that for the technical schools so that we can have them be able to talk with them, be able to control their activities. And of course, we need the collaboration of the Federal Ministry of Education to be part of it. And hence that the committee we are having.
Thank you, sir. Dr. David Clark, coming back to you on, we know the Industry 4.0, the Industrial Revolution is upon us. What has the Engineering Council, what role have you been playing in terms of creating a roadmap, at least for the UK, 50 years or 30 years with regards to engineering practice?
Yeah. Again, we work across the profession. One of the recent activities we've done is to review all the standards. And we do this about roughly every 5 years, 4 to 5 years. And one of the things we're looking for is to make sure that the standards reflect current trends or current developments, I guess, in technology. So sometimes we can work with a group that's already kind of thinking about this. And sometimes it can be, a group that's led by the academy, or it could be a group that's in one of the PEIs. Sometimes we have to set up a special working group to try to understand the implications. One example is cybersecurity, which is something which probably didn't exist 10 years ago, or at least it was something that people weren't really thinking about. But we have actually, in the new version of UK Spec, we have, we do relate to cybersecurity. We've increased the amount of emphasis on sustainability, and that's partly through working with bodies like the IEA, but also WFIO and UNESCO groups there. So we take advice and knowledge from everywhere where we can. I think another area that is probably I suppose developing is automation, the digital revolution, digital manufacturing. Of course, it's not appropriate for every engineer because they're not yet working in that area, or they're perhaps not working at all in that area. But it at a generic level, we can include examples of automation, etc. in the standard. Another example is things like bioengineering, where again it's a new discipline really that maybe didn't exist 10 years ago. Areas where the biosciences are working closely with engineers, and I think we're all learning together, but there are ways that we can incorporate that into our standards, and we do try to do that wherever we can.
Okay, thank you. So now, Professor Odigure, you made mention of quite some challenges, of course, with engineering practice or with the nation at large. Are there some roadmap or some plan from a regulatory point of view that COREN is providing? And maybe you can just hint us a few of that with regards to moving the nation forward from as far as engineering practice is concerned, with also the advent of this Industry 4.0. Professor Joseph. I just hope we've not lost him. Right.
Yeah, a little bit more conservative, but the truth is that disruption has come to stay with us. There'll be serious disruption in terms of climate change, in terms of the artificial intelligence, in terms of Internet of Things. These are disruptions that are bound to happen. And if we look at our registration profile and the type of departments that are coming up in the universities, engineering departments, we find that more of the electrical more of the specialization in the electrical discipline is increasing in number. This speaks of the fact that people are becoming more and more conscious of the fact that the future belongs to the electrical and electrical-based new disciplines. To me, as a person, our nation is still at a very low developmental stage, and our emphasis at this point should be how to tackle the massive problems that we have, as listed in the 17 Sustainable Millennium Goals, and as the SDG goals. We need to focus more on those things to make life a little bit easier. We need to not to emphasize the disruptions that are coming, but to focus on letting our people have the required skill, the competence, and the exposure required to overcome those things. Of course, we should not stop anyone. We should not stop any program that is a little bit more futuristic in terms of the use of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and the ICTs in developing programs or softwares that are futuristic and more intensive in application, but less job creating. We shouldn't stop it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So just to follow up on that, on one of the things you mentioned, this gap and the statistics or the tables you presented, the facts and figures you presented to us, the low number of registration, both in terms of the registered engineers and registered engineering firms, companies or consultancies that were low. Now, is there anything that we could say part of the reason, any reason for that gap? Is there that the registration process is cumbersome or difficult, or is it a case of awareness? People are not aware, or I mean, what are the core reasons why we have this disparity?
It's case of enforcement, case of sanctions, case of discipline. Infractions are done and nobody cares about them. Nobody trying to the police tend to accommodate more of these things. People tend to find their way through certain things. People tend to be less responsive to issues that borders on regulation. This is all issue of the character, the nature we have as a people of not enforcing the law. That's where it belongs, and that's where we are.
Okay, thank you, sir. Right, Dr. David Clark, let me come back to you. Apart from you're working with the international organizations, the European firms, you mentioned collaborations with Italy, and I know you also mentioned about other development. Have you been looking at considering the Council on Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria to partner with them, or see how you could help, particularly when we have quite a number of Nigerian engineers based in the UK who are even in the engineering, who are registered through the EIs. So what are you doing? Any olive branch you're extending to Koren or along that line?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to collaboration, with overseas organizations for sure. I mean, one of the ways we can do that is, I mean, there's a number of different possibilities. I think firstly there has to be a need, so there has to be a kind of a number of people that are interested, and some good kind of justification, if you like, business justification to do that. So that means if we had a partnership, could some some Nigerian engineers benefit by being able to get registered in the UK, perhaps a little bit more easily, and maybe there's some other some benefit for people with UK qualifications that want to work in Nigeria. We have what we call bilateral memorandums of understanding, and we have mutual recognition agreements. And generally speaking, the mutual recognition agreement is a good way to help engineers from one country to to get recognition in another, and vice versa. You still have to meet the standard. Sometimes we can exempt professionals from a part of the process of assessment, but it helps if you're of a similar kind of process in the first place, so you can compare, for example, the current process with the Engineering Council process, and you can see the similarities, and you can see which parts you need to repeat for an individual. So everything is possible. I think it's really good that Corin is working towards the Washington Accord, because that would give you mutual recognition with, well, at the moment there are 21 countries, including the UK, in there. So that would automatically be some recognition for your degree, but it wouldn't necessarily give you recognition for the registration. But that is something that an agreement with, an individual body could give you, and we would be happy to discuss further.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Doctor. Let me get back to Professor Odigure. Just along, we're trying to take in as much question as possible. You mentioned the panel that is current, obviously have, as an ombudsman, has got the moral obligation to bring to panels to people who are defaulting, and just to make sure that people don't get away with some dubious practices in the profession. Now, we've had cases of tanker explosions and collapsed buildings. Are there some statistics you could show about the some cases that have been pursued to some logical conclusions to death? I mean, of these defaulting persons or institutions or companies?
Well, I don't have statistics, but we have a few cases that we are trying, and because we don't have the staff strength in the force to go through the entire gamut of closure and those things. Normally, the police take over most of these cases, and prosecution is taken at the court level. Ours is to establish whether any of the participants in any infraction is an engineer, and if he's an engineer, we for that particular person. Our mandate does not a non-engineer. The Act says we should take those people to court. That's what the Act says. And even when we try to get clarification from the Attorney General of the Federation on the issue of non-engineers appearing before a tribunal, the answer was very simple. We don't have the right to do that. So the tribunal as it is today is purely for those, for engineers and those that are registered in our register. We will deal with those that are registered in our register. That's the power we have.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think at this point, I may have to break off from the question. These questions have been posted before time. Maybe I could just break and take one more from a hand that was similarly up. I think I saw a hand, Engineer Margaret.
Yeah, hello.
Okay. Are you, hold on. Engineer Margaret, her hand was up. If she still wants to ask a question, I just recognize that the hand was up a lot earlier. So if the question has been addressed, okay, there's Suleiman. Let's go with Suleiman. Suleiman Imam, please mute yourself and come through with your question quickly. And please mention who the question is addressed to, either Dr. Clark or Professor Odigure or any other person. Go ahead, Suleiman. Can the moderators unmute?
Unmute yourself. I think he should be able to unmute himself. Suleiman Imam, try to unmute yourself. I can't do that from here.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Okay. Good evening.
Yes.
My name is Engineer Imam Suleiman. I really appreciate the lecture given this evening, but I have a question related to
Go ahead
some of our members that. Hello.
Go ahead with your question. Please keep it brief.
My question is, for a member in working in a company, which is not easy for him to establish his own company, and if he has some other couple of friends that want to form a company and they want to use this practicing certificate, is it allowed to register the company and to stand as a corporate entity?
I think that question should go to Professor Odigure. Registration of firm.
Yeah, we register firms already registered by the Corporate Affairs Commission, and of course, meeting other criteria that are required, as tax clearance and so other criteria already set and approved by council. So just take a look at it and see whether you are qualified for it. But if you are a government official and you intend to register a firm, well, you know, the law of our nation says if you're in government employment, you are not entitled to practice outside the private practice, because it's against the law. But many people still have their firms registered for the rainy days. So I won't say you cannot register, but the truth is that your firm must first of all be registered by the CAC before you come to current. They will determine whether you have met the criteria. When you come to us, we will look at the category that you fall into, whether it's a corporate, whether it's a personal or a contracting firm, or whatever category you fall under, and rate you accordingly. So it all depends on your shareholding in that company, or if you are a sole ownership, you are free to, we can register you. But as I said, the practice is purely controlled by the government laws. So you must make sure you don't run foul of the law.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Clark, we have organization, Nigeria Society of Engineers, Glasgow branch, as an example. Of course, it will be considered among the minority engineering professional bodies in the UK. We have Manchester. Is Engineering Council willing to open your hands? And then I know you've spoken about collaboration, just to be sure on that.
Yeah, we're very happy to discuss further opportunities to collaborate.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, yeah. Right. Finally, I guess that's the question for the evening. Osman Dagona, please unmute yourself and put your question across. Osman Dagona.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay. My question is like here in Nigeria, there are some young inventors and those with special talent about innovation, but some are yet to go to school. Please, like those that are about to graduate, then are they being allowed to register as an engineer, or one of a qualification as a third result before being considered as engineer?
Okay. So Professor Odigure, questions about how do we capture the young talents?
Basically, we have 4 categories of registration: the engineers, the technologists, the technicians, and the craftsmen. And depending on your qualification, you can fall into any of those categories. For craftsmen, we only need a trade test, a registration. You must have a formal, a formal level of training for you to be registered. We don't underrate any of them. They are all members and they are represented in the council as full members of council, because we need their input. Engineering is a family, and we need the input of everybody to make things work.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Just before you go ahead, sir, just like borrowing a lead from Dr. Clark's point, he mentioned about the Royal Academy of Engineers here in the UK, the work they're doing, more of corporate social responsibility in terms of funding some innovative projects or talent hunts in terms of engineering and capacity building. Does Current have any funding or activities or programs that are kind of a CSR-based initiative to groom and help young engineers, budding engineers?
I would say, as we have the committees that we set up, as I said, for the university known as CODET, for the Polytechnic, the COMPODET, that's the committee for the rectors of the deans of polytechnics, the engineering discipline, polytechnics, and we're trying to set up that for the colleges of education. Most of these committees have competitions squarely based at talent hunts, And in any of our engineering assembly, those people are fully recognized and they are rewarded, monetarily rewarded and monitored by those committees to ensure that if they have anything, we present it, give them that platform to announce their project, and of course to award prizes to those that are found exciting and competent. So the program is there, people can key in. Where to look into it into a more formal thing, I think I will present it to council, the next council, and let's see the possibility of setting up a small committee to manage all these things together. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Please bear with us. This is the much we can take for now. Run out of time. Please do still send your question through on the chat room, and we will get any of the speakers to respond to your question. Please, we've run out of time. Just type your question through onto the chat room, and it will be answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Engineer Shah, for for taking that role of it's always the most sensitive and the most detailed part of our program, the question and Q&A section. We appreciate. I just want to call on the Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Society of Engineers, Dr. Alex Okopimomo, FNSC, just to give his remark and also to appreciate our presenters tonight. Over to you, Dr. Momo, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chairman and members of Glasgow branch. This, no doubt, has been a very, very interesting section and quite illuminating as well. But first of all, I'd like to very sincerely thank and appreciate David Clark for his wonderful presentation. It gave us a lot of insights on what a regulatory engineering body really should be doing, and the kind of interrelationships that they have with other affiliate engineering organizations. And I think there's quite a lot that we can also learn from what they do. Going forward, we need to continue to have this kind of interactions and do peer reviews so that we can take international best practices to what we are doing well. Professor Odigure, I also want to thank you very much for very, very comprehensive details that you provided, especially at the beginning of your presentation. I know some of you may be wondering, oh, is this engineering he's talking about? But wonderfully, the way you ended it was quite impressive, and you gave us a lot of thoughts about what Current is doing, what Current tends to do, and the kind of collaboration that also required. The Nigerian Society of Engineers is a very unique engineering organization. And I know you don't find the kind of setup that we have many across the world. Now, the UK Engineering Council, as the Clark was giving his presentation, we see that the council deals directly with the professional engineering institutions. Just like what we have as our own institutions or the divisions of NSC. But the good thing here, we do here is that the professional engineering institutions in Nigeria have come under the umbrella of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. And as a body of engineers in Nigeria, we can always speak with one voice. and create impacts on government policies and the direction of economic development. And that is very unique, that we have the ability to organize our professional institutions to provide needed engineering solutions that we always present to government in the form of position papers on critical national issues and problems is a good thing. And I'm sure many other institutions around the world will want to even copy what the kind of model that the engineering body in Nigeria has. And we need to take serious advantage of this. And one thing I also got from the class presentation, that the professional engineering institutions in UK actually do the assessment of engineers for registration with the council. And I think Kuren should also look at this aspect of the operation and see how we can continue to dynamically engage our divisions, our professional institutions in Nigeria to be much more active in engaging in the professional issues for NSC and for Kuren. And when we do that, the quality of our inputs to engineering matters in terms of regulation and advocacy for better ways of doing things and for economic development in Nigeria will be much more enhanced. On this note, I'd like to thank you very much, Glasgow branch, for putting this wonderful webinar together. And I'm not surprised, given what you have been doing so far, but we look at more for more of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Society of Engineers, the Nigeria Society of Engineers. Thank you, sir, for the contribution. Just to let you know, Dave, the Nigeria Society of Engineers Glasgow branch is a registered charity organization with the OCR as well. So we'll be looking forward to that partnership, and not just only partnership, it has to come with sponsorship, if I would say, from the Engineering Council. Dave, I think you know where I'm coming from. Thank you. I just need your comment on that.
Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. It's not so good now. Yeah, we look forward to discussions.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Marvelous. Thank you. Also, I would like to, just get the remarks from the past president of the Nigeria Society of Engineers, Engineer Ademola Olorunfemi, FNSC. We just want to give room for some of the national executive people, who I need the real people. Everyone is real people, as in who is who in engineering in Nigeria. Over to you, sir. Can you unmute yourself, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much, my chairman. I am honored. As Riley said, we're all important. I'd like to commend you again. I'd like to commend you again for this wonderful initiative. It's awesome, it's commendable. Particularly glad with the president of the UK Registrar, David Clark. Of course, I'm also a member of one of the professional Ps, the engineering profession. I'm particularly glad with the comment of the registrar of, the executive of NSC. Those points are well made, and I believe we should go in that line. It is important to say that basically, if you look at the template of the UK Council, it's exactly the same thing in Nigeria. What you call the engineer is the one with the in current registrar, those who have bachelors and the like. The incorporated engineers are the technologists, cadre, and the technicians are the other cadre. So it's basically the same thing. What we just need to do is to learn a few of what they're doing. I congratulate you, I thank the speakers, and please keep the good works up. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, Engineer Olorunfemi. Thank you, sir, for that. Short one. I really appreciate you for joining us tonight, this evening. And I would also like to call on Engineer Rose Madaki. Engineer Rose Madaki has been in charge of the code and standard of the NSC, and she's also the engineer. Rose Madaki, she's also the one part of the national executive of the NSC, and in fact, she's one of the people that are really committed to our branch and to see our branch moving forward. Engineer Rose Madaki, can you unmute yourself, man, and make your short remarks? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this webinar. Chairman, you have done well. I personally don't expect anything less than this. You have brought two professional bodies together to educate us more on regulations and regulatory activities. We truly appreciate. I wouldn't want to say much because my executive secretary has spoken on my behalf. Let me just personalize it. So his closing remarks has closed my own remark. However, I will always say thank you and encourage you to move forward. I'm always with you, as you know. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, ma. Thanks for that remark. And can I ask the Vice President of the Nigeria Society of Engineers, and she is also the advisor to the Osun State governor as well. Engineer Bitoye KLM, can you make your short remarks, sir? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I thank you so much. Yes, I've really enjoyed myself tonight. In fact, the time spent is of quality. We appreciate NSC Glasgow branch. I'm not surprised because Dr. Adedino has been a wonderful brother. So this is good. And we just have to buckle up in Nigeria. That is the Nigerian Society of Engineers and Council for the Regulation of Engineering, that is correct. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. I think there was interruption there. Thank you.
Yes, we have a lot to do at NSC and Koren. And I think all we just need to do is to improve on the standards and of our operations. And I assure you that very soon, what is expected of us, we shall get there. Because like from the opening remarks of the chairman, that this is a family affair, and Zoom, as that is one of the advantages of COVID-19 has brought to us, that it has brought closeness globally to our people. So I want to really assure you that NSC and Koren will do its best in meeting up the yearnings of our people. So at this juncture, without wasting our time, I want to congratulate you once again. I want to thank Dr. Adedino for extending the invitation to my humble self and others. So we promise that next time when you call us, we'll participate so that we can be together. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, sir. If I missed anyone from the executive, we can, because of the time, we need to, kind of put an end to this shortly. And we appreciate everyone that's joined us today, all the chairman of different branches in Nigeria, and we even recognize, our sister branch, the Manchester branch. I think I have Engineer Patrick Bidoyin, and also the London branch chairman, we Engineer Bosun Odunlami. We appreciate every one of you for joining us today. We really appreciate you. I think there are different divisions in Nigeria. There are chairmen there that have joined us today as well. Because of the time, we can't call everybody to give their remarks, but just know that we appreciate you joining us, and thanks for all your support. And I'm going to hand over to Dr. Emmanuel now to round up the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for handling that segment. And thanks to everyone for your comments and goodwill messages and for cooperation so far. I think we had over about 120 participants, at the peak of it, and this is very highly attended event. Thank you so much. There are lots of takeaways already, and I think the overall idea of this from the branch is to have conversations in this direction to be triggered by this meeting, so that we continue to have more meetings, more discussions between COREN and the UK Engineering Council, share notes and see where interactions and collaborations can spring up from, see where the COREN as well can become a key player internationally, and our engineering degrees and qualifications can be recognized directly by other engineering councils across the world. This is part of the idea and objective of this very meeting. And also for NSC Glasgow, on behalf of the national NSC, to stand in the gap here and collaborate with engineering institutions and bodies here to also share notes at that level of technical and competent impacts across board. So thank you all, and we hope that the discussions will continue even after now. I'll run through quickly some announcements and then we close. This is just to encourage members of the NSC Glasgow to go ahead to our website and make sure they register fully as members. There's lots of benefits coming up in the pipeline. So it's only registered members that will be able to access most of these things. So go on to the website, that's the link there, get registered fully, you get your login details, and then you can follow up with several things that are already happening in the background for specifically for members of the branch. And this is an invitation to our next webinar session. We are joining the idea of building back better, but in this case, building back greener, and accelerating the transition to net zero construction. And our speaker for that day would be Dr. Zainab Dangana, who's a Sustainable Technology Services Manager at Waits Group in the UK. The links to join are there. This webinar will be held on the 12th of June, June 12th. That's a date you remember. And it's starting by 5 p.m. Same time for UK, same time for Nigeria. And another announcement here is from our sister branch, the NSC Manchester branch. They'll be having their May general meeting and technical session on the 28th of May, Friday, the 28th of May, 5 p.m., same time, Nigeria and the UK. And the title of their program is Achieving Sustainable Competitive Edge Through Innovative Professional Development. And the speaker is engineer Mrs. Margaret Oguntala, the MS CEO of BAMSAT Nigerian Limited. So that's the details there. Join them accordingly. I think we've done this part already. We've recognized dignitaries from the NSC headquarters, and we've had good messages.
Mommy said you want to eat beans and plantain.
Okay. Just because of time now, I'll just appreciate everyone again. I won't be calling the secretary to do our usual vote of thanks. Just to thank you all for your patience. Thank you for your contributions. For those who have asked for the slides and the copies of the speech by the registrar, all of these are going to be uploaded on the YouTube channel of NSC Glasgow. I shared the link earlier, and here are links to all of our social media handles where you can access most of this information. And I think we can prevail on, or ask rather, the NSC headquarters to share the link of the YouTube for those who might want to access it widely. Some people were asking if they can get the links through the invitation link they had for this very meeting. Yeah, and Yes, so that will be all of it now. Sorry, I had to rush through all of that quickly because of time. Thank you for your patience. And at this point, we'll declare the meeting closed. But feel free to hang on if you have some more discussions. I'll stop recording just now. Yeah.
Can I just say, if Dr. Dave Clark, if you don't mind to wait for like 2-3 minutes, and Professor Joseph Odigure for